Okay, yeah. So, I mean, today's episode, I think that when we were going through it, Omar, you'd agree that it's kind of all over the place. We've had a lot of good news, bad news, and it is indicative of like what the market is and what it's all about and what's happening. I don't think that there is any clear answer for what's going on in the Canadian market. And I know people kind of read headlines and then they fail to realize that each market is also performing a little bit differently, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. It's the each market is performing differently, but then you also have just confusion generally because people are used to a time where everything was predictable. At least in the last, let's say, 5 years before 2022. Oh, every year I'm going to have an increase in value, and every year I can expect to make money. And now it's confusion, and a lot of just different stuff going on. So yeah, it's definitely. I think the news is overwhelming to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it's like a lot of it is just to what you're saying. I feel like before it was not even just that your price is going to go up. It was across Ontario, across Canada. You're kind of hearing the same news everywhere. Whereas now it's unpredictable, but each neighborhood, each street is behaving very differently. It's not conforming. It's not like there's a uniform, this is what's happening in the market. It is, this is the trends that we're seeing in certain areas, but in other areas is very different. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that the first kind of episode, first article that we're going through was the one on um, Kitchener-Waterloo area, so Waterloo region, and how actually just a synopsis of it. I think it was a City News article. Home prices or housing market finding its balance as prices increase. I find that to be so misleading, but yeah. So this is the article. Like the headline is housing market finding its balance as prices increase. Now, but when you look at the data says the average price month over month went up 3.2% to 753,000. Listings jumped 29%, but year over year it's down 4.7%. Now, just to unpack that a little bit, the month to month 3.2, obviously it's from, I think this is from October. The article came in October, so I'm assuming August to September they went up 3.2%, but listings also jumped 29%. So listings are I would say outpacing sales, and I think there was a number on that as well on the article, but yeah, but
Again,
yeah.
to it has to do also with the confusing numbers as well, where listings have continued to jump up, and yet listings are across the board have been hitting records, but at the same time, the condo market has been skewed since 2022, so it brings up that number.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a 30% surge, it is skewed by the condo surge. Detached homes might be having a listing surge as well, but not nearly as bad as the condo market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then I would say okay, so this article that we saw like where it's giving Waterloo region numbers, I thought that it was I the headline was definitely misleading. Cuz if your price is increasing and what you're kind of alluding to is that market's picking up, but then your listings jump 29%. So we don't know where that is. And year over year, you're still down. So the prices from last September to this September still came down 4.7%. So you can only imagine how much lower they were the month before that it had to go up. And then last year's, it's not like last year we had record high numbers. We were coming off like 30 or as far as high as 30, but somewhere between 10 to 20-year lows in terms of just overall performance. So it's just I found it to be misleading, and I think this is kind of what's advised to people. Oh, prices are going up, you should buy. I think that you should buy because prices are going down, not necessarily because FOMO, fear of missing out. You're gonna blink and prices are gonna double, so jump in now. And I think that's what it kind of alludes to, or it's trying to get, I guess, market confidence. And I think the smart buyers come in when there isn't any confidence. It's kind of like the what's that Warren Buffett saying, when everybody is greedy, you be scared, and when everybody's scared, you be greedy. So I definitely think now is the time to be a little bit on the greedier end. Now, right after that, on the heels of that kind of Waterloo information, um, so we've got the next one, which was the whole strategy. And this is another article, and this kind of fits in line with what is happening and what we're seeing. The whole strategy for buying homes has changed over the past 2, 3 years. Whereas before, you would buy first and then you would sell, and this is pre March 22, and that kind of always worked in your favor because prior to that, like if you bought and then you sold after, because prices are increasing day by day, you actually got more than if you sold first and then you bought. So it was in your kind of it was in your favor to actually buy first because you knew you were going to sell it. But now I think,
Yeah, and
yeah,
and you knew you wouldn't have trouble selling it too. That was the bigger factor. Now we're seeing, especially as a law firm, we see the problems at the end, right? So we see what's going on when everything is falling apart. And what I've seen also is some clients thinking that I'll sell now, I'll buy now, but my closing date won't be for 6 months. So I'm hedging my bets there. It's not like the old market. So I gave myself 6 months, but there's actual real examples that we've seen where those 6 months passed, and then more time passed, and now they're forced to carry both properties, and try to sell that property. So luckily for some people, they're still able to do it with a little bit of hardship, but they can do it. But for others, it's just an impossibility. So it becomes a very, very difficult circumstance to be in.
yeah. And I think one of the biggest issues with your point was that is that, like, when people will say we'll sell in 6 months, or we'll close in 6 months. Um, they're buying a house thinking that they're gonna get a certain price, and for the most part, people aren't getting the prices that they think they're gonna get. And so now you bought a house thinking you were gonna get $1 million for your property, and that's how you adjusted everything. But you end up getting 900,000, maybe even 800,000. So there's a bit of a shortfall there, and nobody has 100,000 or whatever it may be lying around that they can plug that gap. And so you kind of run into further issues. And the reason actually is that these clients are running out of time even in 6 months is because they're looking for a certain price, because that is what they've based all their calculations on for the purchase that they just made. And so that's why they kind of run out of time. So that is something like incredibly kind of I would say foolish, naive. I'm not sure what it is to do. I think that a lot of people kind of jump in and say, "Hey, I saw a house, it's gonna go, and so I want to get it before it's gone." Uh, First of all, I think houses are moving slow, but even if it's gone, you got to have your finances right before you kind of jump into any kind of big purchase like this. Um,
Yeah, and you can end up with a big bill on your hands if you're unable to close, having to go through the court process or settlement or whatever else it is,
yeah.
to be able to resolve that issue. So it's important to plan to avoid all those just crazy costs that can come up when you're going through that, which we're seeing a lot more and more of now. So one thing everyone used to avoid. It was always an unconditional market. Always give an unconditional offer. If you give a conditional offer, people used to not look at it. Now, uh, uh, that's becoming the norm, I think, and it's becoming more common and more needed, especially if you're trying to, maybe you found that house and you're trying to sell later. Then it's adding a condition to be able to sell, which if the buyers, your seller is willing to accept, it's a good opportunity to have.
Yeah, I mean, I would never recommend sellers getting to that kind of contract because it's kind of neither here nor there. Um,
Yeah.
but then even if they go in firm and and the other side can't close, it's not like that's anywhere either. So I would argue that buyers put in financing condition, and sellers, you should be not just content with it, but you should kind of feel confident that these guys are now going to go and make sure that their numbers are right before they firm up the agreement, and you know that on a closing day they're going to close. Because the reality is especially in a market that's all over the place, just because somebody signed a contract does not mean that they're going to close. And just because they haven't closed does not mean that you'll be able to recover all of your costs from them. What if they have no assets in the back? What are you going to you're going to spend more time and money going after parties that really have no way to be able to rectify anything. And so even on the seller end, it's incredibly important for you to kind of make sure that the buyer is in a position to be able to make that final purchase when the time comes. The other thing for on the buyer end, and going back to kind of what we were talking about a second ago, imagine that, like, you buy first, thinking of a particular price, random price in mind. Market is changing day by day, unpredictable, highly volatile. And so I wouldn't say highly volatile, but pretty volatile. And so you don't get that number that you want. So let's say you sell your home, you thought it was going to be a million, now it is 900,000, so you're $100,000 short. You can't close on the purchase. The purchase then comes and they sell their home and they sue you for whatever losses they incurred as a result of you not being able to complete your end of the bargain. And what ends up happening then is that the seller can actually sue the buyer for any losses. And then the buyer is not only out of a house, so they sold their house, they couldn't buy the new house. The equity that they had left is now exposed, right, to the seller suing you for not being able to complete your contract. And so that is something that's incredibly important. And so that's one of the things that with the sell first, buy later um, strategy, it's something that it's almost mandated now, just because you need to know what you have in order to move forward. Now, one of the things that has changed as well is the sales to new listing ratio is 30%. That's insane. So just for those listeners, a balance ratio is around 50%, but right now sales to new listings is 30%. So the amount of new listings going up, let's say we've got 100 listings coming up, 30 houses are sold a month. So 100 new listings a month, 30 houses are sold a month, which means that you're getting a lot of supply in, which means that buyers have more choice, and it also is leading to, I think, Toronto prices are down 5.2% year over year. Um,
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
definitely
and
think, I
then
mean,
affordability.
it's yeah,
It leads to the next topic too. Like affordability is also, I mean, that's what it's claimed. What the when they look at these affordability metrics, it's what is the average income for a family, which they probably recorded at some earlier census. And then second,
yeah,
what are the prices? So like Harris is saying, oh, prices are dropping. So while prices right now might be dropping, and what that constitutes, what type of house they're referring to, we also don't know, right? It's an average that they're looking at across the market, and data for salaries, and they're saying that's coming together and affordability is getting better. But from what the economy overall, what people are experiencing is you have lower incomes, you have more businesses
yeah,
that are struggling. So is affordability really getting better, or is it just comparing numbers that are unrelated or not occurring at the same time, which is making it more confusing. So I think that's an interesting
yeah,
thing. With all these numbers, there's a percentage here, a fact here. It just becomes very convoluted at the end.
yeah.
But
Because I think,
based on the
yeah,
numbers, it was 80%. The national gap was 80% in late 2023. So the gap being what an average family earns and what the average home costs. So if it's at 0%, then it's very, very affordable. So 80% is a very unaffordable market. So now it's 34% as of today. So from 80 to 34 is where affordability shifted as of 2025.
So that's nationwide. That's nationwide,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you
So
have go
sorry,
ahead.
what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, yeah, and then you have different trends in different markets. So, some of the lower cost cities, even before pre the downward shift, have gotten worse. So Calgary, Montreal, Quebec. I know Montreal and Quebec were known as some of the like one of the some of the cheapest, quote unquote, bigger cities in all of Canada, with a significantly lower price than Toronto or even Calgary and all those other cities. So now those prices have started going up. So maybe there's movement going there, but the affordability has gotten a lot worse in those cities. So
Yeah, I
it
think
is kind of each pocket is different.
yeah, Quebec City went from somewhere close to 0% what you were saying, right? Like very affordable, to 44%. And I don't know how true. I don't know. I feel like something is wrong here because it says now it is Quebec City is less affordable than Toronto, which is 36%. And I think that a lot of these numbers have what you're saying earlier, where you have people perhaps even if you get your like the most current data and you're like, okay, the average income right now is this much and the average price is this much, you're still kind of overlooking a few numbers, which is what's the unemployment rate. I know you're not putting that in the average because if you bring that in the average, that's the average is gonna tank, and your affordability is going to get worse. So what's your unemployment? I know people say unofficially youth unemployment in Toronto could be as high as 10-20%, which is enormous. 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 individuals under what is it 30 or whatever it may be can't get a job. It's a huge problem. So that affordability may go up for the people who have a job, but there's just more people who have no affordability.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing was
And then
that
you
I saw
also
that
look at
Hamilton.
volume.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the other thing I was just going to quickly note was that Hamilton went from about almost 120% down to 52%. So it's still higher than Toronto, but I didn't know Hamilton was less affordable than Toronto. I guess they're looking at local salaries, obviously. But I know that a lot of people from Toronto kind of moved out to Hamilton because it was just more affordable.
Hamilton, I think, had some of the lowest cost houses in all of the GTA. You could buy a detached home, even during the peak, for $400,000. But
Oh,
these
wow.
detached homes were super tiny, but it's still a detached home. But of course, then there's also the cliches of Hamilton's the city itself. It's a steel country. It's a blue collar town, but also with a lot of unemployment. So those are some of the
Mm,
cliches. Like there's a lot of people who are unhoused, people who can't afford to or can't find a job. And that's probably where the lack of affordability comes in because Halifax, according to this article, is now the most unaffordable in all of Canada out of all of the major markets. So it's at 74%. So they're not looking at dollar to dollar. It's um, the maybe perhaps the middle income compared to
yeah.
prices. But if you look at housing prices in Halifax, they're less than half of the GTA, easily, probably even lower than that. But somehow the salaries are probably not even close. So this data to me, I don't know. I don't buy it. I think it has to be a lot more granular for it to make any real sense. Because whose salaries are they looking at? Which neighborhoods? If you're looking at a neighborhood with a certain demographic and you compare that income to the housing prices in that neighborhood, that will give you an accurate uh, uh, reading of affordability. But if you're looking at an entire city, I feel like that's just a poor metric to tell you is it affordable or is it not. Comparing all data, all income, all housing just doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, people use it to judge, and yeah. So apparently,
Yeah.
the Halifax is the worst now, and Calgary, Montreal, and Quebec City are getting worse and worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, You know what? I got an opinion on all of this, but I think let's go to that next topic that we had before I kind of elaborate on what I'm thinking. This is when the next topic was RBC warning how affordability gains are stalling. That affordability improvements slowed drastically over 6 quarters of gains, now largely stable due to earlier rate cuts. Um, Vancouver is still the worst, 89.2% of your income required. So basically, RBC is putting out some numbers on the share of income a household would need to cover the ownership costs. Provided this is kind of little dated information. I think they published this in October 1st, right? This month. But it is for Q2 2025. So it is stale information, I would argue, just because every week it's kind of again volatile. I keep bringing up that word, but it's volatile. So a quarter is pretty old. So based on Q2 numbers, um, the share of income a household would need to cover ownership costs in Vancouver was 89.2%. That's insane. And in Toronto, it was 66.4%. Overall, Canada is 53.6. Um, but wow, like Vancouver is insane. But like if you looked at the previous affordability and that information was put out by the government, Vancouver made a lot of room. I think Vancouver was based on the government information. 21% was the affordability gap. So it was shown as one of uh, the lowest. Yet, if you look at RBC data, it's 89.2%. Now, provided that the government information was put out recently, but we don't know how old that information is. This is Q2, so I don't know if we're doing apples to apples, but we're kind of doing red apple versus green apple. We're kind of in the same family. But I don't think 89.2% is pretty affordable if that's how much of income you need to cover ownership costs.
It's crazy, and it's
Yeah.
generally I think prices of most things going up. Um, so that means that little amount of income that's left over has to go a lot further as well, because a
Yeah.
larger percentage of people's income is being needed for food as well and things like that.
Yeah. Yep. And that's definitely not coming down. And then I think I want to wrap this up with our the actually, you know what? That's kind of a whole different podcast, but I think that's good. And I think that these articles that I kind of were looking at, I feel like they're all trying to push one thing. I think they're all trying to push people to come in and buy for whatever reason. They're trying to provide some kind of confidence. RBC saying, "Hey, we're kind of at the bottom of affordability gains." Meaning, what does that mean? Affordability gains just means that hey, we're kind of at the bottom of the market. It's not going to fall any lower. The affordability gap. Oh yeah, like it's dropping. It's great. Some markets prices are going up. The best strategy now is, and a lot of this is spin. So I just feel like, hey, my conclusion, at least, is market is volatile. I definitely think that a volatile market is the best market to buy because that is when you're going to find the best deals. Um, but it also means that you should be careful on how you buy. That's just what I think my opinion is. You should be making sure that you're putting in those conditions. You're making sure you're taking your time. You lose a house, doesn't matter. You'll find another one, guaranteed. You'll like another house after that house. But take your time, negotiate hard. There's no such thing as, oh my God, well, you know what? These guys came down 50,000 already. No, make them come down another 100,000, but be reasonable at the same time. Know what your numbers are. So if you have a house and you're selling it, sell that home. Know what your budget is. If you know your budget is $1 million, I would start bidding on houses that are priced at 1.2, thinking that you could get it down to 1 million. Now, if it doesn't come down to 1 million, you don't have to buy it. But these are strategies that I wouldn't. It's not like before where you had a budget of $1 million and then you'd have to look for houses that were 800, 700,000 because there's going to be a bidding war that would go up to 1 million. I think we're at the opposite end of it. And we should kind of focus more on um, how you're going to negotiate down and understand your numbers. You should always know your numbers, whether it was a bidding war or no bidding war. You should always know your numbers. I think that now you got a little bit. I guess there's more slack because you can actually get a financing condition in and then go about things. The other thing is so to what Umar was saying earlier. I, as a seller, definitely you should not. I don't think it is wise for you to get into agreements where there's a condition where the buyer has to sell their home. But even for the buyer, like I definitely think that you should sell your home first and then move into whatever it is that we're looking at. And I think Umar has disappeared. He did not
That
like what I was saying.
that's the end of my
All right.
video. I guess we're concluding. So
All right then. We'll talk
yeah.
to you guys next time. Take care.